guys, what did you think about that teaser trailer? So, if you guys can see by this title, it's coming back. If you guys don't know exactly what that means, the podcast is finally coming back. But there are quite a few changes that are going to be applied to the podcast. So guys, before I get into any further detail about the podcast, this isn't about bringing the Perspective podcast back. I know a lot of people have texted me like, hey, like, are you like bringing the Perspective podcast back? Is this what this is? And no, it's not. Again, the Perspective podcast, we did it from February to November with Fiz, if you guys remember, back last year. And after that, we just kind of saw it coming to its end, and we just weren't really getting like a whole lot of attention, that it just kind of came to a close. But again, it's not like we stopped it because we're not friends anymore. The thing is, Fiz and I are still great friends. For those who are wondering why we stopped the podcast, don't worry, we still hang out, we still talk, we're still great buds. But we kind of just saw the podcast coming down to an end. And after a few weeks that Fiz and I had that conversation, another friend of mine actually also wanted to start a podcast with me, and it kind of got me thinking that maybe I can create a new podcast with him and kind of make it into our own thing. So when it came to making a podcast space, I decided to do it in my garage, since I already have all the gear at my house. I have the camera, I have the tripods, I have the microphones, I have the lighting. I pretty much have all the stuff that we need to shoot the podcast, so it just makes more sense to shoot it in my garage instead of me having to drive it to his place or a different place every single time, so that it would save us a lot of time when it comes to setting it up. So I decided to do it in my garage. But before I go into any further details of the podcast name or exactly what the podcast is about, here is a little clip of me setting up the podcast studio. Alrighty guys, so as you can tell, this is the official podcast setup. I'm going to be giving more of the details just in a sec. I don't want to do it right now, purely just because the second host of the podcast isn't here just yet. I think he's going to be here probably like in 15 minutes. So I had to wake up like at 4 o'clock in the morning. Right now it's like 5:40, and I'm actually surprised that I'm this awake, because generally, especially at this time, I'm like still like a little bit tired. But obviously with the openings of this podcast, I've got some energy, I'm not gonna lie. So I'm gonna get back to you guys once the second host of the podcast is here. And once he's here, I'll be talking about all the details of the podcast, what's the name of the podcast, what we're gonna be talking about. And also, I'm probably gonna be making another video talking about more exactly of how we record everything. Obviously, I kind of showed you guys exactly what we're doing here. So for those who actually know how to work with audio and video, you kind of already know like what the setup is. But for those who don't know, and for those who like, have a bit of some interest of kind of what goes behind the scenes of the podcast, you guys are going to have to wait for another video. But right now, we're just going to wait for him to come. Alright guys, so the other host is here. I'm going to be opening up the garage for him to come in. So let me show you who the second host is. So I'm going to introduce the second host of the podcast right here. This is Sankalp.
What's up?
Yeah, this guy's been asking me for like a shout out for so long, I think ever since like 2018, 2017. So honestly, probably one of the biggest fans I've had from my channel for sure. And you want to talk about a little bit more about the podcast, what the name is, because I haven't told them what the name is yet.
All right, so yeah, the podcast is called Brown Boys Theory. It's me and Anish. We're just gonna be talking because we like to talk it up, and we thought why not have you guys be a part of it.
So as you just heard, Sankalp and I are officially announcing the Brown Boys Theory podcast today, Tuesday, November 3rd, and our first podcast hasn't been released yet because our first podcast is going to be released on November 10th at 7 a.m. PST. So pretty much a week away from today, when this video is being uploaded, is pretty much when the first podcast is going to be released. So for those who are interested exactly what this podcast is going to be about, it's kind of just going to be about what Sankalp and I are going through with our everyday lives, especially both of us being college students at Sac State. We're going to also go more into social media, viral news, culture, religion, politics, whatever it can be. If you guys want to be a guest on the podcast, go to our Instagram, which is at brown_boys_theory, and send us a DM there, where Sankalp is going to be taking a look at it, replying to you guys, seeing if you guys have anything interesting that you guys would like to talk about, questions, discussions, wanting to be in the podcast. Sankalp is going to be reviewing it and see if you guys will be a good fit for the podcast. Alrighty guys, so that is going to do it for us on this video. If you guys do like the podcast, or if you guys like the setup and you guys are kind of curious, like, yo, how'd you set it up? What kind of gear do you use? Like, how'd you get that kind of quality? Let me know down in the comments below, and maybe I might make a small behind the scenes video of how the podcast was made, or exactly what do I use in the podcast. So if you guys like this video, make sure to give it a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.